The night my billionaire grandfather died, my family fought over his fortune before his body was even buried. Everyone believed the richest son would inherit everything. They were wrong. The old man left the entire empire to me. The granddaughter nobody respected. When I opened the final inheritance file, I found a shocking truth. I was not chosen because I was family. I was chosen because I was the only person who could expose who killed him. My name is Clara Hayes. And before that day, believed. For 10 years, I lived a quiet life far away from the Hayes family. No luxury, no private drivers, no expensive clothes, no family parties where everyone smiled while secretly planning how to destroy each other. I managed a small bookstore downtown. Morning, I opened the door at 8. Every night, I counted the money in the register and wondered if I could afford my electricity bill. A simple life, a peaceful life, a life that disappeared the moment my grandfather died. Edward Hayes, the legendary billionaire, the man who built Hayes Global into a global empire, the man who could make politicians answer his calls, the man who knew every secret in his family, and the man who left me everything. When I arrived at the Hayes mansion for the funeral, everyone looked at me like I had walked into the wrong place. My Uncle Richard laughed first. "Clara?" He looked at my old coat, then my cheap shoes. "Did someone accidentally invite the staff?" Everyone laughed. I looked around. My cousins wore designer clothes. My aunt carried a handbag worth more than my yearly salary. They looked like they belonged there. I didn't, but I still walked inside because my grandfather personally wrote the invitation. Clara must attend, those were his exact words. Nobody understood why. Probably confused near the end. She smiled. Old people make strange decisions. I looked at her. Interesting. She raised an eyebrow. What? You think a billionaire who controlled thousands of employees forgot how to write a will? Her smile disappeared. Because everyone knew one thing. Edward Hayes was many things, but stupid was not one of them. Then the lawyer arrived. Daniel Carter, my grandfather's personal lawyer for 30 years. The inheritance. Richard stood confidently. Of course he did. He was the oldest son, the person everyone expected to inherit the empire. He had spent his entire life preparing. Daniel opened the document. Edward Hayes left the final message. A recording started. Grandfather's voice filled the room. "If you are listening to this, it means I am dead." Nobody moved. I know everyone here believes they deserve my empire. A pause. "But most of you are wrong." Richard's face changed. The recording continued. Power exposes people, and inheritance destroys people. Everyone became uncomfortable. My grandfather continued, "The person who receives my legacy will not be the person who never asked for it." Slowly, everyone turned toward me. I felt my heart stop. Richard laughed. "That's impossible." Daniel opened the official will. "The sole heir of Edward Hayes." He paused. Everyone held their breath. "Is Clara Hayes." The room exploded. "What?" "No, impossible." Richard grabbed the table. "You made and more." I verified the documents. Richard stared at me. For the first time in my life, my uncle looked afraid. Then Daniel handed me another envelope. This was attached to the will. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, my grandfather's handwriting. Only 3 sentences. "Clara, if you inherit everything, it means someone failed to stop me from telling you the truth." I frowned. Truth, then I turned the page. My hands froze. "The person sitting closest to you is the reason your parents died." The room became silent. My parents, a subject nobody talked about. They died when I was young. A car accident. That was the official story, but my grandfather was saying something else. Someone killed them. I looked around the room. Everyone avoided my eyes, except one person. Uncle. He looked at me, not with anger, not with jealousy, with fear. Then the mansion lights suddenly went out. A scream came from the second floor. Everyone panicked. Security rushed upstairs. A few minutes later, they returned. We found something in the old study. Daniel frowned. The old study was sealed. Yes, then how was it opened? The guard hesitated. Because someone unlocked it from inside. Nobody spoke. Inside, someone was already there. Dust, old books, old documents, old memories. But on the desk was something new, a black box with my name written. Inside was another will. N folded the paper. Ev's first sentence destroyed everything. Edward Hayes was not the founder of Hayes Global. Silence. The second sentence was worse. The person who created this empire was erased from history. Richard stepped backward. Daniel looked shocked. Victoria whispered, "What does that mean?" I kept reading. Fingers tightened. Then the final sentence appeared. The person who knows the truth is still alive. A name appeared. Ethan Hayes. Nobody moved. Daniel's face became pale. He was Edward's partner. Partner? Yes. Before Hayes Global became famous. Before your grandfather became a billionaire. There was another man. Ethan Hayes. I looked at the document. Then why did everyone forget him? Daniel looked toward the window. Because he knew the answer was dangerous. Because someone wanted him erased. Suddenly, my phone received a message. Unknown number. One sentence. Clara, your grandfather chose you because you are the only person I failed to remove. My blood turned cold. Another message appeared. Come to the old factory. Come alone, then the final. I am the heir your family stole from. Ethan Hayes. I stared at the message. Ethan Hayes. The name that had been erased from my family history. The name that made Daniel lose his confidence. The name that my grandfather hid until his death. My first reaction was not fear, it was anger, because once again, someone was controlling the information. Everyone knew pieces of the truth. Everyone, except me. I turned toward Daniel. Take me there. His expression changed. No, I looked at him. That was not a suggestion. Clara, you don't understand. I understand enough. I held up my phone. Someone who knows my family secrets contacted me. My grandfather left clues. My parents were murdered. And everyone keeps telling me to wait. I stepped closer. I waited 10 years. My voice became colder. I'm done. Me for several seconds, then he sighed. You really are Edward's granddaughter, I smiled slightly. I'll take that as a compliment. It wasn't. I know. For the first time, Daniel almost smiled. Almost. But the moment disappeared quickly because we both knew one thing. Factory was not a place where people went to find answers. It was a place where people went to disappear. The factory was located outside the city. Far away from cameras, far away from people. The perfect place for someone who wanted secrets buried. When we arrived, the prom building looked abandoned. Broken windows, rusty doors, no lights, no movement, but I knew immediately. Someone was there. How? Daniel asked. I looked at the ground. Fresh tire marks. Someone had arrived. The factory was huge. Old machines covered in. Dust-empty offices. A forgotten place. Then suddenly, the lights turned on. A man's voice came from the speakers. Clara Hayes. I stopped. Welcome. The voice was calm. Too calm. You finally came. I looked around. Ethan. A laugh echoed. You know my name. Everyone knows your name. No. The POS team. I stopped. Well, Carr. Voice became colder. Everyone knows the fake story. A door opened at the end of the factory. A man walked out. Older. Gray hair. Sharp eyes. Exactly like the picture. Ethan Hayes. The missing heir. The man who was supposed to be dead. Daniel immediately stepped forward. Man looked at him. Daniel Carter. A smile appeared. You still protect the family that destroyed us. Daniel's face tightened. I thought you were dead. That was the plan. Ethan looked at me. But Edward ruined it. I stared at him better than anyone. Then tell me the truth. He walked closer. Which truth? The one everyone keeps hiding. Ethan stopped, then said, "Your grandfather stole my life." The words shocked me. What? He took my name. Hayes Global. Ethan smiled. That is what history says. He pointed toward the old factory. But history is written by winners. He walked to an old table, placed a file on it. Before Aya's corporation, I opened the file. 2 names, Edward Hayes, Ethan Hayes. Partners, ownership split, 50%. 50%. My eyes moved quickly. Then I saw something, a transfer agreement. Ethan's shares were transferred. Looked at me. Exactly. I looked up. Someone forged your signature. Yes. Who? Ethan smiled. Now, you are asking the right question. Before he could answer, the factory doors suddenly opened. A group of men entered. Daniel immediately recognized them. His face changed. No. Who are they? Daniel whispered. Blackstone Security. What is that? The private security division used by the Hayes family. I looked at Ethan. So my family followed us. Ethan shook his head. No, he looked toward the men. They don't work for your family. A man stepped forward. Double W. A black suit. Expensive watch. Cold expression. Clara Hayes. I looked at him. Another person who knows my name. He smiled. Everyone knows your name. Now, who are you? My name is Adrian Vale. My eyes narrowed. Vale. Ethan's expression changed. Adrian smiled. Yes, the family you're tying. Grandfather tried to erase. I looked at Ethan. Are you related? Adrian laughed. He is my father. Silence. Ethan looked away. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. Adrian continued. You have questions, I nodded. I have many. Good. Grandfather left something behind. What? Adrian took out a small device. A recording. He pressed a button. My grandfather's voice appeared, but this time, he sounded different. Then Ethan and Adrian have found her. My heart tightened. The recording continued. Clara, I owe you the truth. A pause. I was not the victim. Everyone became silent. I was part of the betrayal. I froze. My grandfather, the man everyone respected, the man who left me the inheritance, closed his eyes. The pain on his face was obvious. But I did it because someone forced me. I looked at the recording. Who? My grandfather answered. The person who truly owns Hayes Global. The factory became silent. Another secret. Recording continued. And Clara, if you are watching this, do not trust Ethan. I looked at Ethan. His expression changed. My grandfather's voice became weaker. Because he knows why your parents died. The recording stopped. Nobody moved. Ethan looked at me. Ethan. And I realized something terrifying. Every answer created a bigger question. My grandfather had not left me a treasure hunt. He had left me a battlefield, and everyone standing around me might be fighting for the same secret. Fortune. The secret that had already killed my parents. The secret that was now trying to kill me. The factory became completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Repeating in my mind, Ethan Hayes stood in front of me. The man who claimed he was betrayed. The man who claimed my grandfather stole his life. The man who might know why my parents died. I wanted to believe him, because for the first time, someone admitted my family was not perfect. But my grandfather had spent his entire life preparing for his death. He had no reason to lie, unless the lie was deeper than I imagined. Ethan looked at me. You believe him? It was not a question. I looked at him. Appeared on his face. That is exactly what Edward wanted. I frowned. What? He wanted you confused. Daniel suddenly stepped forward. Stop. Everyone looked at him. Ethan laughed. Still protecting him, Daniel's expression was cold. You don't know what Edward sacrificed. Narrowed. And you don't know what he destroyed. The tension between them felt like a war that started long before I was born. I looked at Adrian. You brought us here because you wanted something. Adrian smiled. Smart. Cold, like he had been waiting for this moment. Yes. What? The final inheritance file. I frowned. My grandfather's will? No. He shook his head. The real inheritance. I looked around. This factory? No. He pointed at me. You. The answer made my skin crawl. What does that mean? Adrian walked closer. Your grandfather didn't choose you because you were his favorite. Then why? Because you are the only person who can open the last account. Daniel's face changed. No, Adrian looked at him. That was enough. I turned toward him. Another secret? He looked guilty. I was going to tell you. When? When it was safe. I laughed. Safe? I looked around. My parents died. My grandfather died. People are following me. Someone is trying to erase my family history. I stepped closer. Please explain when exactly it becomes safe. Daniel lowered his head. He had no answer. Adrian placed a small black card on the table. This belonged to your grandfather. I picked it up. No name, no number, only a symbol, the same symbol I had seen on the old documents. The symbol connected to the unknown owner. What is this? The key to what? Adrian looked at Ethan. Was hidden from everyone. Ethan's expression changed. You found it. Adrian smiled. Yes. Ethan suddenly became serious. You don't understand what you are doing. Adrian looked at him. Funny. You said the same thing to me when I was a child. The room froze. I looked between them. Two know each other. Adrian laughed. He raised me. My eyes widened. What? Ethan looked away. I was protecting him. No. Adrian's voice became sharp. You were hiding me. A painful silence followed. Then Adrian continued. My father disappeared. Edward destroyed his name. And Ethan spent years pretending he could fix everything. He looked at me, but he never told me the truth. I stared at Ethan. You had a son. Ethan closed his eyes. Yes, and you never told anyone. I was trying to protect him. Daniel said that. Every person who lied to me used the same excuse. I suddenly understood something. Everyone in this story claimed they were protecting someone. But every protection created another wound. Then the factory alarm started. The building. Daniel immediately looked toward the entrance. We need to leave. I looked at him. Why? Because someone activated the security system. Adrian checked his phone. His face changed. They found us. Ethan stood up. Who? Adrian showed him the screen. A single name appeared. Richard Hayes. My uncle. I felt my stomach tighten. He followed us? Ethan shook his head. No, his voice became serious. He was invited. What? The factory lights flickered. Then the main doors opened. Richard walked inside. Alone. No guards. No weapons. Stared. My uncle looked at Ethan. 30 years. Ethan smiled, still angry. Richard ignored him. He looked at me. Clara. I stepped forward. What do you want? Richard looked tired. I want to stop this. I almost laughed. Stop what? The truth. The answer shocked me. Because I expected him to deny everything. Instead, he admitted it. You know something. Yes. You know why my parents died. Richard became silent. Then he said, yes. My hands tightened. Tell me. I can't. I walked closer. Everyone says that. Richard looked at me. But I am the only one who knows what happens if I do. What happens? He looked at Ethan, then Adrian, then Daniel, finally me. Everyone in this room dies. Nobody spoke. Then Richard continued. Because the person who controls Hayes Global is not Edward. Not Ethan. Not me. A pause. The real owner has been watching this family for... The factory lights suddenly went out. A new voice came through the speakers, a voice none of us expected. A woman's voice. Calm, familiar. Richard. Everyone froze. Because Richard's face changed, not fear. Recognition. The voice continued, "You failed again." Richard whispered, "No." I looked at him. "Who is that?" He didn't answer. The speaker continued, "Clara Hayes, you finally reached the truth." The lights came back. A screen appeared. An old photograph. A woman standing beside Edward Hayes, beside Ethan, beside my parents. I stared because I knew that face. Everyone knew that face. The woman everyone believed was dead. My grandmother, Margaret Hayes, the voice smiled. "Welcome home, Claire." And then the final message, a bowl ale. Margaret Hayes. My grandmother. The woman who was supposed to be dead. The woman whose funeral I attended as a child. The woman everyone told me I lost. Nobody spoke, not even Richard, and that was the most terrifying part, because my uncle was a man who always had something to say, a man who could negotiate billion-dollar deals without blinking, a man who could destroy someone's career with one phone call. But now, he looked like a child caught stealing. I turned slowly toward him. "You knew." Richard didn't answer. My voice became colder. "Was alive." His silence was enough. I laughed. A quiet laugh. Not because it was funny, because everything finally made sense. Every secret, every lie, every missing piece. My family, I looked at Richard. Why? Did everyone pretend she died? Richard looked at the screen at Margaret's face. Then he whispered, "Because we were afraid." I frowned. "You?" He looked at me. Yes, that answer surprised me. Richard Hayes was afraid of someone. Again. My grandmother's voice filled the factory. "Richard, you always were the weakest one." Richard clenched his fists. "Show yourself." A soft laugh came through the speakers. "You still give orders like you own something." The screen changed. Sitting in a dark room, older, elegant, calm, my grandmother, Margaret Hayes, alive. Hearing my name from her mouth felt strange. Like hearing a stranger say something familiar. I stepped closer. "You let me believe you were dead." Margaret smiled. "Why?" "Because the truth was dangerous." I looked at her. "Dangerous for who?" Her smile disappeared. "For you," I almost laughed. "Everyone says they did things for me. Your grandfather, Daniel, Richard, now you." I shook my head. "But every time someone protects me, I lose another part of my life." The room became quiet. Margaret looked at me carefully. Then she said, "You sound like your mother." My heart stopped. My mother? Yes, tell me about her. Margaret looked away. Untouchable. Just a mother. Claire was the smartest person in our family. I frowned. Then why was she never mentioned? Because she discovered the truth. What truth? Margaret looked back at me. The truth about the inheritance. I looked at the card in my hand. She nodded. Hayes Global was never the real empire. Everyone became silent. Again. Another hidden layer. Margaret continued. The public company was only a shield. Behind it was a private organization, an organization controlling investments, governments, and Dalicom. Information, Daniel whispered. Omega. Margaret looked at him. So you remember. I turned toward Daniel. Omega. He looked uncomfortable. I hoped you would never hear that name. I stared. Everyone hopes I never hear anything. Global. Edward and Ethan discovered it by accident. Then they tried to control it. I frowned and failed. No. She looked at me. They succeeded. Then why hide it? Because power always changes people. A pause. Edward became obsessed with controlling it. Ethan wanted to destroy it. And your mother? She wanted to expose it. My breathing slowed. My mother started all of this? Margaret nodded. Yes. and that's why she died. Nobody answered. That silence was my answer. I looked at Ethan. You knew. His face was full of regret. I knew she was in danger. But you didn't. Save her. The words came out sharper than I expected. Ethan looked down. I tried. No, I stepped closer. You failed. He accepted the accusation. Yes, for some reason that hurt more, because he didn't defend himself. Then Richard suddenly spoke. Expression had changed. The fear disappeared. Now there was anger. You all keep blaming me. Ethan looked at him. Because you betrayed us, Richard laughed. Did I? He pointed at Margaret's image. She created this. Margaret's expression changed slightly. Richard continued. She was the one who wanted control. She was the one who built the secret system. She was the one who turned our family into enemies. I looked at Margaret. Is that true? She stayed silent. And silence from powerful people usually meant something. Mistakes? You destroyed everyone. Margaret looked at him. And you helped. The words hit him, because they were true. Richard looked away. I realized something. Nobody here was innocent. Everyone had blood on their hands. Then the factory doors suddenly locked. A red light started flashing. Margaret's expression changed, not fear, concern. That's impossible. I noticed. For the first time, my grandmother looked surprised. What happened? She looked at the screen. Omega has activated. Daniel froze. Stared at the warning message. They found us. Ethan stepped forward. Who? Margaret slowly looked at me. And her answer made everyone freeze. Your father. The world went silent. I stared at her. My father is dead. Margaret shook her head. No, her voice became quiet. Your father disappeared. A new file appeared on the screen. Project. Return subject. Jonathan Hayes. My father. Then another message appeared. Subject has awakened. I couldn't breathe. Because, for the first time in 10 years, the impossible became possible. My parents were not both gone. My mother was murdered. But my father was alive. I couldn't move. My father, alive. The word felt impossible. For 10 years I had carried the pain of losing both parents. I remembered the funeral, the black clothes, the people whispering. Strong. I remembered standing beside my grandfather while everyone said my life had changed forever, but now everything I believed was a lie. I looked at Margaret. You knew. My voice was shaking. You knew my father was alive. Margaret didn't answer immediately. Enough. My eyes became cold. Everyone knew. No. Daniel stepped forward. Not everyone. I looked at him. Then who? Nobody spoke. That was the problem with my family. The truth was always somewhere in the room, but nobody wanted to be the person who opened the door. The screen continued flashing. Project. Return. Subject. Jonathan Hayes. Status. Active. Ethan stared at the screen. He activated the protocol. Margaret looked at him. Yes, but how? Her expression changed. Because someone gave him access. Everyone slowly looked at each other. Inside this room, someone had helped my father return. Richard suddenly laughed. A bitter laugh. You see, everyone looked at him. You are still doing it. Margaret frowned. What? Looking for a traitor. Richard smiled. Your entire family has spent decades doing the same thing. He looked at me. Every time something goes wrong, everyone searches for someone to blame. Your grandfather blamed Ethan. Ethan blamed Edward. Edward blamed Margaret. Margaret blamed me. He shook his head, and now Clara will blame everyone. I stared at him. You're saying, nobody is responsible. No. Richard looked at me. I'm saying everyone is. The answer was uncomfortable, because deep down, I knew he was right. Then the factory lights suddenly turned off again, but this time, nobody panicked, because we all understood. Door opened slowly, footsteps echoed. 1, 2, 3. A man walked into the factory, older, tired, but familiar. My entire body froze. Because I knew that face. Even though I had not seen it for 20 years, I knew. A child remembers their parents, not their faces, their voice, their presence. Dad. The word escaped before I could stop it. The man stopped. His eyes became red. Clara, everything around me disappeared. For a moment, there was no inheritance, no secrets, no family war, no billion-dollar empire. Just me and my father, alive. I wanted to run toward him. I wanted to ask where he had been. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to cry. I wanted all the answers. Instead, I stood there because something felt wrong. My father looked at me. I'm sorry. That was the first thing he said. Not hello. Step back. Where were you? Silence. Where were you when I thought you were dead? His eyes filled with pain. I was trying to survive. I laughed. 10 years. Yes, you survived for 10 years and never looked for me. He lowered his head. I was protecting you. My expression became cold. There it was again. That sentence. The sentence everyone used. Protecting you. I looked around. Do you know how many times I heard that? Nobody answered. My father looked at the others. Then back at me. You don't understand what happened. Hesitation destroyed something inside me. Because after 10 years, he still wasn't ready to tell me everything. What happened to Mom? His face changed. Pain. Real pain. Your mother discovered Omega. I know. He looked surprised. You know, I know about the secret company. Grandpa wasn't the real owner. I know everyone lied. My voice became louder. So tell me something nobody knows. My father looked at Margaret, then Ethan, then Daniel. Finally, me. Your mother wasn't killed because she discovered Omega. I froze. Then why? Controlling Omega. The factory became silent. Who? My father looked at the screen, at the symbol, at the hidden system, then whispered. The person who inherited Omega before your grandfather. My heart tightened. Who? My father looked at me and said, You. Nobody spoke. I stared. What? He walked closer. Before you were born, Omega created a succession plan. That's impossible. No, he shook his head. Your grandfather knew the organization would eventually destroy itself, so he created a backup. I felt a strange fear. A backup? Yes. An heir. I laughed. No. My father looked at me sadly. Yes, your DNA, your memories, your identity, everything was recorded. I stepped back. You're saying I was part of this before I even knew? Yes, the answer hurt. Because, once again, my life belonged to someone else's plan. My grandfather, my parents, Omega. Everyone had been moving pieces around. Except me. I was never the player. I was always the piece. Then my father said something that changed everything. But there is one thing they didn't expect. I looked at him. What? He smiled slightly. You. I frowned. What about me? Expected Clara Hayes, the daughter of Jonathan Hayes, the granddaughter of Edward Hayes, the future owner of Omega. He paused. But they never expected the girl who walked away from everything. The factory became quiet. One chose you, not because you were born into power, because you rejected it. I looked down. For the first time I understood. Maybe my grandfather didn't choose me because I was the strongest. Maybe he chose me because I was the only person who wasn't addicted to winning. Then the computer suddenly changed. A new message appeared. Succession confirmed. Everyone froze. Margaret stood up. No. Daniel looked at the screen. That's impossible. Ethan stepped closer. What happened? My father's expression became serious. The system accepted her. I looked at Paul. The screen. What does that mean? Nobody answered. Then another message appeared, OMEGAAOW as. The factory shook, alarms started, and then a final message appeared. Previous owner requests a meeting. I stared. Previous owner, my father looked, terrified. Because he knew who it was. Who? He whispered. The person who created Omega. A name appeared, a name nobody expected, a name that made even Margaret lose control. EWAD, but that was impossible, because Edward Hayes was dead.